Lesson 2.5 discusses the transformations of functions. So taking the parent functions that we talked about in lesson 2.4 and moving them around, shifting them side to side, up and down. And we've talked a lot about these in algebra with parabolas. So these first two examples here with the parabola should look pretty familiar. So we'll use these to go through the 4 rules that are written at the top here, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the vertical shift moving up or down is 1 and 2. So these two get grouped together here. And that's if you're adding at the end of a function, so after. So whatever the x value is, you have a plus c at the end or a minus c, you're adding or subtracting. So that would be like the first example here where we're adding to. This moves our parent function. It just takes the whole thing and moves it up 2 units. And so that plus or minus at the end just moves us up or moves us down. Just takes the whole thing, every single point, and moves every point up or every point down. And then your horizontal shift is when your c value is grouped with your x value. So notice how when we move, we have the minus c or the plus c inside the parentheses. When it's inside the parentheses, so let's make a couple extra notes on this one. So inside parentheses with x. And with these, you move the opposite direction because whenever you're pulling a value out of parentheses, it changes its positive or negative. So when we're inside the parentheses with x, we're going to move the opposite direction. And that's the easiest way to remember it, in my opinion, because this minus c actually means we're going to do plus c when we move it. So we're going to move to the right. And the plus c actually means we're going to do a negative c, so we're going to move to the left. So when you're in the parentheses, try and separate this little note here a little bit. When you're inside the parentheses, move the opposite direction, left or right. And that is the example that is in the middle here. We have a negative 2, x minus 2. So this means we're going to do plus 2 to the right. So notice how we started in the middle. That's the gray. Right? So here's your parent function. And then moving it 2 units to the right shifts it over positive 2. And there's the new function. So that's what we've talked about with parabolas especially, but that's true for every style of function. So just for example, right away here, here's our cubed function. The original is in gray. That's the lighter one. So this is our x to the third. Now, if we take that and we throw a minus 1 at the end, that means we're going to take that entire thing and move it down 1 unit. So notice how every point, like if I started in the middle, it's now going to be moved down 1 unit. Okay, if I have a point at it's just random point here at 1, 1, now it's down here at 0, 1. If I have a point here at negative 1, 1, now it's down here at negative 1, negative 1, now it's at negative 1, negative 2. So just every single point on the graph, no matter what the shape is, gets shifted down 1 in this case. So let's go ahead and let's shift that graph. So let's say we're asked to shift the graph of x to the third. Well, in order to shift, you need to have a fairly accurate sketch of your graph. And so what you can do is you can just do a quick table of values and choose a few. Always choose 0. And then we do want this to be pretty accurate. So let's go ahead and do negative 1 and negative 2, and then positive 1 and positive 2. Now notice I don't have these in order here. That's okay. So what I'm doing is I'm taking the x value to the third power. So 0 to the third power, and you can type these on your calculator too, is just 0. Negative 1 to the third power is negative 1. Negative 2 to the third power, make sure if you use your calculator that you are using parentheses around these, that is important, is negative 8. Positive 1 to the third power is still 1, and 2 to the third power is positive 8. So this will give us a good idea of what points we can use and then shift. So if we plot our points, we got 0, 0, negative 1, negative 1, negative 2, negative 8, and then positive 1, and positive 2, positive 8. And we know what this x to the third should kind of look like because we have it right up here, but we just don't have a lot of values. We only have up to the -2, and we want to get a little bit zoomed out look of it. So here's our zoomed out look, and then we can go ahead and connect. So we know it's going to look kind of like an S shape, kind of curved. There we go. And then arrows in both directions. So there's our parent function. So what we're going to do is all those points now are going to get shifted. So letter B, because we have this +2 at the end, we're going to take everything and move them up 2 units. So instead of, and on Notability, I do believe you could technically take this and copy and paste it. Let me see if I can do that on this program. Okay, so there's not a user-friendly way to do it here, but that's okay because it's not difficult. All we need to do is take all those points and move them up 2. So instead of 0, 0, I'm going to move that up 2. Instead of 1, 1, I'm going to move it up 2 to 3. Instead of 2 being at 8, I'm going to move it up 3 to 11, or sorry, up 2, sorry, to 10. And then instead of -1 being at -1, we're going to move that up 2. And then instead of -2 being at -8, we're going to move it to -6. So there's all of our points that we previously had, just moved up 2 units, and then I can still connect it like a nice curve. Okay. So even if you can't copy and paste, it's not difficult just to move your points up 2. And then in our next example, we have a combination. We're going to go down 1, and we're going to go left 2. Remember, because we're inside the parentheses, so we're going to do a -2, which means we're going to go left 2. So now I need to take my point that was at 0, 0, and I'm going to move it down 1 and to the left 2. So here's my new point. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm not going to draw all the old points on here. And so to see that, then from 0, 0, it would now be down 1 and to the left 2. From +1, +1, we'd go down 1 to the left 2. And then -1, -1, down 1 to the left 2. And then if I were at -2, -8, I'd go down 1 and to the left 2 over here. And then my +2 at 8, I would go down 1 and to the left 2. So I'd be right on the axis there. So here we have all of our points just shifted 2 ways, down 1 and to the left 2. All right, so there is our first example of shifting functions, and you can easily do so by starting with your parent function and knowing some specific points, so making this table of values up here, and then just shifting everything. So in the first example, we took every one of the points in the parent function up here. We just took all the points and we moved them up 2. And then for letter C, we took all the points, we moved them down 1 and to the left 2. So there's our shifts and our transformations for number 1.